Hello, I'm back. I just kind of want to throw myself into the fire here. So Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. That's today. I'm going to talk about all the different major planets or points. So the moon, Mercury, the sun, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Chiron, North Node, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Of course, there's others, but those are the ones that I'm going to talk about today. Um, and I do use the mean node. I am working with Western tropical astrology, and here we go. So today we have the moon in, excuse me, Aries. So we have like this starting moon. So hey, what I exactly just said, throwing myself into the fire, that kind of makes sense. So when you think of the moon, you think of emotions, and when you think of Aries, you think of that's the beginning of the zodiac. It's ruled by Mars. It's very much about let's go, let's go, let's go. It can be impatient. It can be prone to anger, but it can just really just say, just do it already. Stop thinking about it. It's not going to stay in your head. It has to go out. So Aries is this fire sign. So fire is the energy of doing. And we have it opposing Venus, and Venus is in Libra. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. And to me, that's saying, where are you not treating yourself fairly? Because the moon is all about nourishment and the mother and home and family, and Aries is all about starting. So have you, I feel like last week maybe you started a self care routine and then it was Halloween. A lot of times when we have this self-care routine or something that we're doing for ourselves, if we go on like a vacation or there's something that kind of like breaks it up, then it gets even harder to get back on track. But I feel like this opposition is kind of like squeezing you and making you feel like I deserve to take up space. I deserve to take care of myself. It can be something as little as swapping out your morning coffee for ginger tea, just something really little. Taking a walk after dinner before going to bed. Maybe you just started flossing. Like, and I know that those things don't sound like self care, but whenever you want to form like a new neuronal pathway, whenever you want to work with your subconscious, whenever you want to get rid of limiting beliefs, like all of these are kind of the same thing that I'm saying, but I'm saying them in different ways. Um, and that's kind of what I feel like anyone who does astrology or Reiki or is a psychic or any of these things, that's all we're doing is we're translating because language is just like a lens and everybody has a different lens and everybody has a different way that they can retrieve information from someone else. If I'm speaking in all astrology terms, it might not be helpful to someone who has never thought about astrology a day in their life. But if I take the astrology terms and I reassimilate them into different kinds of languages, which would be like psychology or science, I'm saying the exact same thing in a way that somebody else can interpret them. So moving on, we also have the moon in Aries making a square to Jupiter, and Jupiter is in Cancer. So this is also that like show some restraint. Yes, it's okay to have self care, but you don't necessarily need to go into indulgence because, of course, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and Cancer is a water sign that's very big on emotions, home, family, nourishment, things of that nature. Then when we move on to Mercury, and I'm going in a different order than the traditional Chaldean order, just because I like this order better. It seems more intuitive to me. I'm going through, so the moon takes 2.5 days to move through the 12 Western astrology signs because I'm just using the 12 typical. I don't have a fuchsius, I think is how you say it. I don't have a fuchsius in here yet. Um, so the moon is 2.5 days approximately per astrological sign. Mercury is about 3 weeks per astrological sign. The sun is 1 month per astrological sign. For example, another reason why I'm doing it this way is because it makes more sense to me. I like presenting things in a different way because then it's like perhaps newer or fresher. I also want to mention that the traditional Chaldean way of reading would start with the sun first, and it is going from I believe it's the heliocentric perspective. I wrote it down and I'm having a hard time remembering. Yes, okay, so the traditional order would speak of the sun first, because the traditional or Chaldean order goes according to the speed of the celestial bodies as they appear to move through the sky from an Earth centered or geocentric perspective. And I'm just doing it a little bit different. We can just call this Brooke style or whatever. Okay, so moving on to Mercury. Mercury is in Sagittarius. So when we think of Mercury, we think of the mind. We can also think of polarity, right? Um, if you've ever known someone with really strong Gemini or Mercury energy, because Mercury rules Gemini, it's like they have two personalities or two minds. And depending on who they're around, they're going to express a different facet of that part of themselves. And it keeps people accountable. They're very good at playing devil's advocate. Sometimes they're really good at triggering people. But like we talked about earlier in my video, triggering is an invitation to heal. It's just showing you, hey, I got a cluster of dense energy here. It's kind of like if you fell and something happened with your knee, then your knee's saying, hey, you haven't been paying attention to me in your energy, in your physical, excuse me, in your emotional and mental realm. So I had to present to you physically so that you would pay attention to me, because anytime there's pain or a trigger, that is a cluster of dense energy that needs to move. Energy doesn't like to be clustered together. It wants to move, it wants to be free. It's always doing things, right? Okay, so Mercury, the mind, ideas, it rules Gemini, Earth, the heavens, and the other realm, whatever we want to call it. Um, According to, astrology in the Roman Empire days, that would be Olympus, Earth, and Hades. So, but it can travel between realms. So it's very intelligent, very quick moving, very witty, very much going to keep you accountable. And so Mercury has a lot of fun stuff going on. It's holding hands in a conjunction with Mars, which is at the last degree of Scorpio, at least according to the ephemeris that I'm looking at right now. And the other thing I want to talk about is applying energies. So the moon opposing Venus in Libra is an applying energy. The moon squaring Jupiter in Cancer is an applying energy. And that means that this is like an energy that is just kind of checking in. It's like this fresh new energy entering the chat. Whereas, and then also, and then also the Mercury in the fire sign of Sagittarius making a holding hand conjunction to Mars in 29 degrees or the last degree of Scorpio is also an applying aspect. So this is something that is new, that is moving through you, that is starting to move through you. Whereas some of the other ones that I will describe will be called separating. And that means that the energy has been like this for a while and it's proceeding out of the chat, I guess you could say. So Mercury, this air sign of thoughts, communication, and polarity, seeing both sides of everything. Very cool that it's holding hands with Mars in Scorpio, because Scorpio is all about the depths. Scorpio is a water sign, and with Mars being in Scorpio, well, it could really just be like calling you out. So to me, I feel like this could completely just be a trigger, like, or showing something that has been a trigger to you in the past that now you're like, oh, that didn't trigger me today. So the conjunction, because conjunctions are said to be easy aspects, whereas things like oppositions and squares are said to be hard aspects. I would almost say that the hard aspects are better, because what do we know about challenges? They get us out of our comfort zone. They empower us to grow and to take action, right? So then we also have Mercury in Sagittarius opposing Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini. That is a separating aspect. But because Uranus doesn't move very fast, it takes about 7 years to go through one astrological sign. And of course, it depends on when it's going retrograde and stuff like this as well, right? But because Uranus is a very slow moving, it's an outer planet, right? I do believe it's a trans-Newtonian object. Sorry, trans-Neptunian object. See, I'm practicing. You guys get to be here and see it, right? Um, but I wholeheartedly support myself in my endeavors and in my mistakes. And I hope that anybody else will do the same, because now is the time for it. Now is the time to put yourself out there, to let yourself be seen. And, like begets like. So I will always be kind to people when they are working on doing something new. So there you have it. So Mercury in Sagittarius, this fire sign, this like, I have this idea, I want to put it to work. Going in with that conjunction of Mars and Scorpio is going to be like, okay, so where am I not seeing myself clearly? Maybe it's like a trigger that just hasn't really, it's improving, but it hasn't wiggled its way out of your energy just yet. So the Scorpio detective is like, okay, let's go through this. Let's look at our emotions. Where are we feeling sorry for ourselves? Where can we hold ourselves accountable? Then we have Mercury in Sagittarius opposing Uranus and Gemini. So when we think of Uranus, that is the sign of revolution. It's the disruptor, right? And if it's at 0 degrees of Gemini, and this is a separating aspect, meaning that it's been here for a while, um, it's going to be here a little bit longer. I don't have that written down. Oh, yep. Sorry. So Uranus will be going back into, because Uranus is retrograde right now, pardon me. And it will be moving back into Taurus on the 8th, so 3 days after the full moon. And yeah. Oh, you guys, the full moon is tomorrow. Oh. Anyways, okay. And I think it's kind of cool because the full moon is at 13 degrees. So the full moon is at 13 degrees of Taurus. The sun is going to be opposing that, which is what a full moon is, right? And it's at 13 degrees of um, Scorpio. So, hello, shadow integration. So, I almost feel like today is like this opportunity where you have Mercury opposing Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini to be like, okay, like, where do I need to call myself out? Where do I need to break down something about my routine? I feel like there's a lot with like routines that, like, self care routines, holding yourself accountable, not being in victim mode. So, like, if you wake up every single morning and your stomach hurts, but you're not feeding yourself properly and you're just eating a bunch of wheat thins before you go to sleep at night, well, no SHIT, Sherlock. Like, let's get it together. Little things like this. That's how I'm seeing. Or maybe it's like little things that you're thinking. Because you got Mercury in this fire sign, you're thinking about doing something, opposing Gemini, again, the mind, thinking, communication, duality, devil's advocate in Uranus. Like, where can I break apart my routine? Where can I take action to make myself feel better? Maybe it's something with your nervous system. Maybe you keep saying yes to everything when you want to say no. Maybe these people pleasing tendencies are leaving. All right. And again, that Mercury opposing Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini is a separating aspect. So even though it's going to be here for a little bit longer, because it moves retrograde back into Taurus on the 8th, and it is retrograde at this moment, right? It just moves very slowly. So then we also have Mercury trine, which a trine is what's called a harmonious aspect. And it's a trine is like a sextile, but a little bit different, and that it's more expansive in nature inherently. So it's almost like if you're not paying attention, you could miss it. Whereas like a sextile, you could also miss it if you're not paying attention, but the sextile requires a little bit more boots on the ground, right? Whereas a trine is kind of like la da da la da da, like you're so lucky, so maybe buy a lottery ticket or something like this. So Mercury in Sagittarius trining Neptune, and again, Neptune is of course retrograde and will be, do I know how long? All of November. It won't go direct until October when it will go direct in Pisces. But so Mercury, mind, Sagittarius, fire, action. And Sagittarius is very much like, I want to explore new things. I want to learn new things. I want to travel. I want to see other cultures. I want to learn about different religions. It's very expansive, right? So it's trining Neptune, 29 degrees of Pisces. And this is also separating because this is something we've been working on for a while. So you could say you have, a little bit over a month to get it together in terms of this, to pay attention to the blessings that are all around you. Maybe your mind is constantly like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this because I want this one thing and I need to do all of these things to get this one thing. And you have this trine and Neptune at the anaretic degree, which is the last degree of Pisces, again, retrograde. And retrograde can mean redo, rinse, repeat, recycle, but it also, to me, really means like, when you see a retrograde, you're being called to go within. You're being called to use your internal reference point because your power lives inside of you. It doesn't live outside of you, right? So you're being called to go in and say, where in my mind do I want to do something? And I'm musing upon it in these very Neptunian realms of Pisces because Neptune does rule Pisces. And what can I do about this? What can I do about this? I want to think, but I also want to do something about it. And I feel like with this energy of a trine retrograde, the answer has been there all along. You just didn't recognize it. And it's something that you have inside of you that's like the key. Then we also have Mercury in Sagittarius, sextiling Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius. And again, that's a separating aspect. Pluto will be um, in Aquarius all this month. So, not too much changing with that particular situation there. But when we think of Pluto, we think about our personal power and power in general, right? We think about death, rebirth, karma, because Pluto rules Scorpio and the eighth house. And so when Pluto is at 1 degrees of Aquarius, how can what I'm doing for myself benefit others? And what can I do about it? So you take the Mercury mind energy in this fire Sagittarius, like learning, um, expanding, exploring, and how can I get my boots on the ground and do something that will be good for me and also for everyone else? And we could take this back to coffee. If you're drinking coffee every single morning and it's making you agitated and impatient, then your family will thank you when you stop drinking coffee and you're no longer angry and agitated. Or maybe you'll be angry and agitated because you want your coffee. But I think you understand what I'm saying. And it goes beyond that. It's just like if you decide to start a compost pile, if you decide to start bringing your own bags to the grocery store, if you decide to not buy and support companies that don't have the same like intention for human life or planet life or whatever you want to call it as you do, it does make a difference, even if it's just you, because your intention is huge. The thought, the intention, the emotion combined with the action, that is manifestation. That is the definition of manifestation. And even though you feel, oh, I'm just this one teeny tiny person bringing my reusable bag to the grocery store, not only are you doing it and creating this thought form that gets legs, that will also have this way of presenting itself to other people, whether tangibly or maybe just, they're thinking similar thoughts than you. And then they see you using your bag and then you give them the idea. Or maybe they come up to you and they say, wow, that's a really great reusable bag. Where did you get it? Right? I mean, think about if you've ever gone to Aldi. I love going to Aldi. I feel like I always get so many cool insights when I go there. I haven't been there in a little while. But the last time I went there, there was a cart that was already out. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to use this cart. And when I put it back, I'm just going to like leave it in the thing so someone else can have it for free. Well, when I walked up to where the carts are, there's this like cement podium and it had like 75 cents on it. Some lovely human left 3 quarters, which is 3 carts worth. That means something. That made my day, you know? Anyways, I hope that makes sense. But any little thing that you do with love, that you do with intention, that you're doing because you care about the planet and the people and just the collective, it does not go unnoticed, and it makes a huge deal, right? It may not seem like it makes as big of a deal as some of the bad stuff, but I promise you that it makes a change. So use that Mercury mind energy. So like I think I want to help the world. I can leave 1 quarter at Aldi so one person will be able to get a cart. Maybe the person forgot their quarter that day. Maybe the person never been to Aldi before and they didn't know it was a thing. And you have this strength and this power inside of you. And again, gift from overflow, right? So if you don't have a quarter and someone comes up to you, you don't have to make yourself feel responsible for the fact that that person doesn't have a quarter, right? So what you do from the inside out with positive intention, with mindfulness, with grace, this makes a huge difference, right? Not just for you, but for the people around you and the world at large and the earth and all of its consciousnesses. All right. So now we're moving to the sun. The sun spends about 1 month in each of the 12 Western tropical astrological signs, and it is in Scorpio right now. The thing that I thought was interesting is the only aspect, according to the ones that I put in the data for, that is occurring today is Chiron in Pisces with a trine to the sun. But besides that, there were no other aspects. And Chiron is a centaur. I believe it's an asteroid. And Chiron has a very interesting story behind him. Let me see if I wrote it down. And if not, no big deal. We can talk about him another time. But because Chiron is often called the wounded healer, he basically he the people he was born from, he was a disgrace to them, so they disowned him, and then he was adopted by Artemis and Apollo, I believe. So then he ended up getting all of this wisdom. Um, so he's often referred to as the wounded healer. I personally like to refer to him as the alchemist because that's what he does. He transmutes pain, right? So wherever you have Chiron is kind of like your trigger point. So, but the sun doesn't make any other aspects today. And when I first saw this, I was like, wow, that feels like a loss of the sense of self. So I feel like this means, where are you counting on external validation to kind of let you know who you are, right? Because what you really could do is you can just keep going inward. And I feel like that is kind of what is being asked of us. And then when you think about it, Chiron is in Pisces, Chiron is retrograde. Chiron isn't in Pisces. I don't know. I apologize. I wrote this stuff down, but hey, I'm practicing. So there's truth in all of this. So let's look down here. Yeah, that's interesting. No. Chiron is at 24 of Aries, and it's making a trine to the sun. Hmm. We'll come back to that in a minute. But basically, before we get to Chiron, let's just talk about the sun. So when I went through all of the aspects, you have to go look in a different place to find each specific aspect. But basically, I noticed that there was no aspects for the sun. And I was like, this is really weird. Does this mean that we're having a loss of a sense of self? So I think that this really speaks to the fact that it's time for some internal self-reflection. I'm actually just going to look at it really quickly here. Da, 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 da. Today's Tuesday, the 4th. And we're going to Chiron. Yeah, Chiron is in 24 degrees of Scorpio. I don't know why I wrote it was in Pisces. I'm such an interesting little lady, huh? All right, let's go down and look at this real quick. Um, hmm. No, that is some bonkers type stuff. Because no, there are no, that I can tell, there are no aspects to the sun. So, no aspects to the sun. How do you feel? Do you feel like you're living in a dreamland? Do you feel like you don't know where your energy stops and another person's begin? So, it's really a good time for internal self reflection. Okay, so then moving on for Libra, Venus spends about 5 weeks in each astrological sign, each of the 12 Western tropical, right? And right now she is in Libra. So Venus loves being in Libra because Venus rules Libra. And Libra is all about harmony, balance, aesthetic beauty. And we have Venus in Libra making a square, making two squares actually. The first square is to Jupiter, and this is a separating aspect. So that means that it's kind of processing, it's moving on through, right? And then we have also an applying aspect, which is Venus in Libra squaring Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius. So when I think of Venus in Libra squaring Jupiter, again, it's saying, hey, just make sure you're not overindulging. It's okay to take care of yourself, but it doesn't need to be an excess. We don't want to be, you know, ignoring any parts of our self, home, or family by going into some type of kind of like, I don't want to necessarily say delusion because that would be more like a Piscean type realm, but just too much excess, or it honestly could be like victim mentality, and that's okay. It's okay to spend a little bit of time there, and then you say, okay, I take accountability. I hone in on my sovereignty and my sense of self, and I got this. And then again, with Venus in Libra making a square to Pluto in Aquarius, it's saying, how have you not been fair to yourself and perhaps not been fair to others? Um, and I read this more as like, what have you been accepting into your life, into your personal orbit that really doesn't resonate for some external reference point, right? And so, like, a big word that I could say that would kind of explain all of this would be like the patriarchy. Because personally, and a lot of people feel the same way, I feel like the patriarchal, like caste systems and arbitrary systems of hierarchy are almost like a spell that we've collectively been put under for a really long time. And Venus is very feminine. It's what we love and value. And Venus rules over Libra, which is the place where she's residing right now. And Libra is all about fairness and balance, right? So we take this love and value, fairness and balance. Wait a minute, all this feminine energy coming up against Pluto and saying, like, where have I been looking outside of myself for my power? My power has always been inside of me because I am sovereign. So, where can you be claiming your sovereignty? Maybe it's about boundaries. Maybe it's about saying no. And this is an applying aspect. So, meaning it's coming forward for you. And every single time you say no to something that you know in your multidimensional being is not for you, maybe it looks good on paper. Maybe it's a job offer. And you're like, oh, well, this is the first one that I've had. And it looks good on paper. But then you start looking more into it, and it's like tugging on your solar plexus, and it doesn't feel good. You have to say no. And every single time you have a really profound no, where you're reclaiming your self sovereignty, it reverberates out. And you're not only helping yourself, but you're helping the world at large. It's that leader by example type of thing. Because true leaders, in my opinion, are transient. True leaders lead by example, not by force, not by some arbitrary title, not by even accomplishment. Because I feel like the world has gotten obsessed with, like, you are what you do. No, what you do is a reflection of who you are. You wouldn't be here on planet Earth as a human right now if you weren't meant to be here. So that's another discussion for another day. But so let's move on to Mars. Mars spends about 1.5 to 2 months in each of the 12 Western tropical astrological signs. And right now, Mars is at the anaretic degree, or 29 degrees of Scorpio. So I also feel like this is another form of self-reflection, because Mars is this beginning energy. It's like starting new endeavors. It's like, get out of your head, um, you know, get off your butt and start knocking on doors. It's like this quote that I always see whenever I watch this silly show called Bosch, but it's like on one of the stalls of the people who have like their offices there in the detectives' quarters. It just says, get off your butt and start knocking on doors. That's Mars. It's like, I don't want you to think about it. I don't need you to feel it. I just want you to do it, right? And then you have Scorpio coming in here and saying, wait a minute, wait a minute. You got to make sure you're seeing yourself clearly. Here's your magnifying glass. Go ahead and like make sure you're you're seeing all of your light and your darkness, and make sure that you're holding yourself accountable. You don't want to just start and have to start over. So let's make sure that we're being very intentional and make sure we have some organization, right? Because again, Scorpio is the detective of the signs. And then, so Mars in Scorpio is making this beautiful trine to Jupiter in 25 degrees of Cancer. So that feels very much like being honest with your needs. It's also making a square to Saturn, and Saturn is retrograde. So again, you can use this as like a revisiting type thing, like you didn't do it right the first time, you got to do it over. Or you can take it a little bit later, which is what I like to do, and say, you've been focusing on the external, start looking on the internal, because that's where it starts. So, and it's in Pisces. So where have you wanted to start something new and you kind of got bogged down by I can't, by disillusion? Because Pisces is, the Neptunian realm. It's very dreamy, but it can be illusionary and disillusionary. It can be like that, oh, I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. And Saturn's going, excuse me. And Mars is going, excuse me. And Scorpio's going, excuse me. Yes, you can. And it's a beautiful sign. So it means, like, if you can dream it, you can do it, right? Because you got the Mars, you got the fire, you got the Scorpio, you got the detective, you got the details, and then you got the Saturn saying, like, hey, like, structure is good. Give yourself a little bit of structure. Be diligent about doing something small every single day that's going to build towards this big goal that you have for yourself, right? It's like if you just had little pieces of rice and you just got like this little vessel. I'm just going to grab this. And one day you just put one little piece of rice in and you didn't even think about it. then eventually it would be overflowing with rice. So think about that in terms of the little things that you can do every single day that will get you towards where you want to be. And then we also have Mars opposing Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini. And again, I feel like that's very much like, where can you break apart these mental constructs? Again, that's also the I can't energy, right? Because Gemini is very much of the mind, and it's at 0 degrees of Gemini. So Uranus being at 0 degrees of Gemini is like fertile ground for revolution, and it's opposing your detective and go-getter Mars energy. So it's saying like, where do you want to do something different? Start with your mind. Start with your mind. Everything begins with a thought. And then we have Mars in a trine to Neptune at 29 of Pisces. And these last two aspects are applying aspects. So, meaning that Mars opposing Uranus in 0 degrees of Gemini, that's something that's kind of like a newish energy coming in. Same with this Mars trining the Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces. And I feel again, it's very much like Mars and Scorpio aren't going to let you get away with just laying in bed and dreaming all day and feeling sorry for yourself. So this trine is actually, it's giving you like this peaceful, tranquil moment of like, I am enough. And that peaceful, tranquil notion that you are enough is enough to allow you just those little deliberate actions. Like we're talking about the little pieces of rice every single day. Then we have Jupiter at 25 of Pisces, making a trine to Saturn retrograde in Pisces. So Jupiter Pisces, trining Saturn Pisces. So it's like, if you can dream it, you can do it. But the dream is just as important as the work, because Jupiter, expansion, Cancer, nourishing the self, mothering energy, trining Saturn, which is very much like structure, right? And Pisces. So it's almost like we have a lot more expansive and watery type energy, but then we have Saturn coming in saying, yes, we do need some boundaries, but they don't need to be rigid and they need to come from you. That's how I feel like I'm reading that. Then we have Jupiter in Cancer, trining Neptune at the anaretic degree, 29 degrees of Pisces. And both of these are, what do you call it? I wanted to say assimilating, applying. So they're coming in. So it's like this fresh new opportunity energy. So Jupiter, where can I expand in my self-care? Cancer, trining, so like this beautiful like blending type energy of Neptune. What are my dreams? And Pisces, am I making sure that they are not out of illusion? Am I making sure that I keep myself on track? All right. Then we also have Jupiter in Cancer opposing Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius. So, setting new intentions for self care and holding ourselves accountable because of our personal power, and knowing that as we take care of ourselves better and better and better and better and better and better and better each day, we're also in training the energy around us, which will reverberate out and send this energy signal to other people who are kind of going through the same type of stuff as we are, that they can do the same. So you're not just helping yourself, you're helping the whole planet, the whole world, the all of consciousness, I would say, not just human consciousness, right? Because there's consciousness down to the level of an atom. That means that the computer that I'm talking to you on has a consciousness. This has a consciousness. This has a consciousness. And that's another reason why I always talk about entraining the energy. So pay attention to the way your dishwasher, your ice maker, your car, your any of the electronics you are um, making time with and spending time with. I know that's a weird way of saying that, but if things are acting a certain way around you, they're reflecting your state, because everything starts here, and then it's presented to you on the outside to be like, do you like this? Do you want more of this? So that's why what you focus on, what you pay attention to, is what grows. So if you're focusing on it and paying attention to how your printer is a big POS, instead of going over and saying, and I know this sounds crazy, guys, but just try it. I really appreciate you. I appreciate how hard you work for me. You're a lovely printer. I'll do whatever I need to do to help you feel appreciated so that you can keep going. And again, this is kind of like the way my energy is. So your energy might be a little bit different, but I'm just saying, do you think that you're going to want to work harder if someone's being kind of a curmudgeon to you? And I realize it's an electronic, but what I'm telling you is everything has consciousness, different types of consciousness, right? Different levels of consciousness. Level's not my favorite word to use, but obviously this guy probably doesn't have the same range of emotions as I have. But that's a whole other thing too, because you know, that's one of the things that I think is really cool about being a human being is there's a lot of other dimensions that don't have emotions, and we get to have emotions. And they are meant to be passengers, and they're just meant to be experienced and to send us a message and set free. Okay, let's keep going. Where are we? Okay, we're at Chiron. Chiron is in Aries retrograde, conjunct the moon in Aries. So, where have you had problems self starting? Because it's going to come so easy. It could even be like this kismet moment or something like this where, you went to go visit a friend. She said, do you still make those lovely enter products that you make here? Because I would like to buy one. And I also have two more friends that would like to buy one. So it's like you just went out in your normal day doing things that felt good to you. And it brought you closer to this physical, tangible goal that you've been holding for yourself. Chiron in Aries opposing Venus in Libra. Where are you not treasuring yourself? Where are you not realizing that it is in your uniqueness where you can shine? Because it's in your authenticity. Because we don't need carbon copies. We don't need, I call them erasers, like people who are just like, yes, okay, yes, people pleasing. And we've all gone through it, or maybe you haven't, and yay for you, but I've definitely gone through that. We all go through this point in life where we feel like we have to fit in and be like everyone else. But really, we're all meant to fit into this special puzzle piece that only we can fill. There's something that only we can do in a way that only we can do it. And if we are never completely ourselves, then we never magnetize to us the people who will fully accept us exactly as we are. So I feel like that's very much what that energy means. And Chiron in Aries is also making a square to Jupiter in Cancer. So let me see what that feels like. Chiron in Aries. Where are you afraid to be vulnerable? Is how I see that. Because as you're being yourself, the people who are meant for you, who love and adore you and respect you just the way you are, will always make you feel safe in your vulnerability. And maybe it's being around yourself. Maybe I feel like the whole energy of today really feels like shadow integration. Going into your body, figuring out where you have emotions or physical pain or like a looping thought that maybe isn't even yours, but it got into your orbit somehow and you're trying to get it out and you keep focusing on it more and you're like, the more I focus on it, the more it grows. I don't want that to happen. But you don't go into fear. You decide to do one of those energy cleansing regimens where you plant your feet on the floor and you can put your palms of your hands on your thighs, or bonus points if you can go outside, sit with your spinal column up against a tree, have your bare feet in the dirt or the grass and your palms of your hands in the grass or the dirt, and just breathe and imagine the connection that flows all the way through your spinal column, out your root chakra, into the core of the earth, coming back up and infusing every single part of your physical, energetic, emotional, spiritual, auric body, all of it. And then extending all the way out your crown chakra up through the galactic chakras into all that there is, into the field of source energy, the divine, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And then allowing these two flows of energy to interplay into the crust, out to the divine, into the crust, out to the divine, and just picturing it flowing through all of your body, all of your organs, your blood, your bone, all of your connective tissue, just as detailed as possible. And then you come back out of it and you're like, okay, Where have I not been seeing myself clearly? Where have I been thinking other people's thoughts? Where do I have a stuck emotion because I didn't feel safe to explore it back in the day? Just set it free. Give it your privileged free will consent to set it free because energy wants to be free. Energy wants to move. Just like a little boy trying to pay attention in a class and he can't stop moving. Energy wants to be free. Okay. Then we have the North Node, which is always retrograde at 15 degrees of Pisces and a trine to the Sun in Scorpio. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe that was our aspect I was talking about earlier. I will say that last week I stayed up really late every night and worked on these ephemeres, and so that would make sense that I wrote Chiron instead of the North Node. So the North Node, which is, I guess you could say, your destiny. Your South Node, if you're looking in your chart, is going to be where you came in this incarnation, and your North Node is where you're meant to go. So the North Node right now is in Pisces. So what is possible is what I would say. And it's trining the moon. And the moon is shining on the things that are possible in Scorpio, which means there's details. So go inside yourself and just do a meditation and just ask yourself, what is possible for me? What is possible for me? What is possible for me? And then you're going to start seeing things presenting themselves as like words, maybe as Care Bears. I don't know why that's coming up. Teddy bears, like with little things, like maybe one word written on their stomach, like grace, independence, flexibility, freedom, energy, autonomy, taking up space, like whatever. So the North Node is saying, "Hey there, let's pay attention, to what can happen because Jupiter rules Pisces. It's all about expansion. And in this beautiful trine to the sun in Scorpio, hello, it's saying, look at all of these things that you have going for yourself. Look how amazing and wonderful you are. And then we have Saturn at 25. Again, Saturn is retrograde at 25 of Pisces, and it's got a conjunction to Neptune, also retrograde in Pisces. And that's a separating. So I do apologize. I forgot to mention that. The last few have been separating, meaning they've been here for a while, they're passing through. Again, we have Saturn and Neptune, which are slower movers. So Neptune, again, is retrograde all of November, and it won't go direct in Pisces until December. And then Saturn is going to be at 25 degrees retrograde of Pisces all of this month. It won't turn direct until next year in February. So these are longer standing energies. So even though they're separating, meaning they're moving through, they're still going to be here for a little while. Again, Saturn is all about structure, which is really good to have with Pisces because Pisces is expansive and it's just like, woo, and Pisces is known as a water sign, but really a lot of talk has happened about it being the sign of ether. I'm almost wondering if they would even say something like the sign of plasma, but we'll talk about that at another time. But Saturn is structure. Pisces is pretty much like lack of structure. And then we have this holding hands or conjunction with Neptune, which again is water, it's flow, it's possibility, it is also expansion, and again in Pisces. So you are not to get lost in yourself. You are not to get lost in your subconscious. I do feel like this is really big on subconscious. I would call it recoding. You can call it whatever you want to, but maybe look into maybe you have a habit that you want to let go of. Maybe it's a repetitive thought. Maybe it's a habit like smoking cigarettes and you don't want to do it anymore. You can look up different kinds of affirmations that you can use with yourself. You can think about learning hypnotism. That would be cool. You can go into your mind, body, spirit complex while you're in theta, which usually is really good right before you're falling asleep, right when you wake up. And of course, my favorite is if you take a nap before and after the nap, or if you wake up in the middle of the night when you go back to sleep. Um, go to whatever you feel like this limiting thought complex or belief system is. And that's actually a really good segue to talk about So the way that I look at religion is it's basically for me, it's a system of values, right? And religion is beautiful because it brings so many people with the same value systems together. But at some point in life, I found most major religions to be very limiting. So I had to think about it for a very long time. And I realized it's all about values. So what you can do is take, it can be a note card or a big piece of paper, and you fold it lengthwise like this. And on one side, you write your beliefs, and one side, you write your values. Cover it up when you're doing it. So beliefs, I believe this, I believe that, I believe this, I believe that. So perhaps maybe you have a belief that everyone is born abundant and abundance is your birthright. And you write down all these beliefs. And then on the other side, you write, um, I value this. I value autonomy. I value freedom. I value inclusion. Basically, what I'm getting at is it's going to be like a matching game. So you're going to take your belief and your value, and you're going to try to match them all. And if there's any that aren't matched or any that don't feel good anymore, circle them and go through your body with the intention of sussing that out. Because I think that that's another thing. Excuse me, I'm going to take some tea. That's really cool about doing this is you can still belong to any and all religions of the world that you'd like to, because that's a very beautiful way of having a community, right? But if you're constantly doing this checklist and this inventory of your belief systems and your values, then you might realize, okay, I'm saying right here that I believe that everyone is born abundant and that abundance is our birthright, but I have this value over here that is kind of like constricting this, or vice versa. And then you can go in and you can just ask yourself, where in my body does it not feel safe to accept abundance? Because maybe another one of your beliefs was all rich people are greedy or something like this. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining what I'm trying to say, but I do feel like multidimensionally, those who are needing this message will get it, not necessarily with just the words that I speak. And if you've been working with me for any length of time, you'll know exactly what I mean. So, anyways, Saturn. But I feel like Saturn is really just here to say, like, hey, it's okay. It's okay to go through and to say, well, I used to really like polyester because I used to work outside and I used to sweat a lot and it kept me dry. But now I don't work outside anymore and polyester doesn't really wash very good and polyester is made from plastic and I don't want to use it anymore. So that's just like a very physical tangible way of explaining what I'm trying to say, you know. And another thing is, do you have little things around your house? Because I do. I have, like, my husband calls them knickknacks. Go through your stuff. If there's anything, like, maybe I could give this to a relative next time I go hang out and there's a bunch of little kids, unless he has some kind of significance where I want to keep him. But I guess what I'm saying is going through your physical, tangible things is the same type of energy where you go through your body and you take an inventory of your beliefs, your belief systems, your values. Where can I share more of myself with others? Where can I share my tangible things that are just sitting up there collecting dust? It's one thing if it means something to you, right? Like I found this nautilus shell when I was in Fiji several years ago on a scuba diving trip. So it means something to me. So it can sit there and collect dust all day long. Probably mean nothing to most people, but my son found it. It's a red rock, and I've used it so many times in my Reiki sessions as the placeholder for the root chakra. And in fact, if you're ever feeling like you're having a root chakra kind of day where you don't feel safe in your body for whatever reason, get yourself a lovely red rock and just hold on to it sometimes. Uh, let's move on. So then we have Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini. And of course, it's doing the sextile to Neptune and the trine Pluto. So you need to put in a little bit of work, mind work, to achieve your dreams. You want to break apart the way that things used to be. Maybe you always used to work for someone and it just never felt good because you've always wanted to work for yourself. Well, Uranus is saying, revolution time, baby. 0 degrees of Gemini is saying, start with your mind first. Sextile is saying, boots on the ground. You got to do some action here. And it's in Neptune. So, what action are you dreaming of? Maybe you're dreaming of working with children. So then you get an opportunity to help out at your child's school. There you go, because it's an action. It doesn't have to be the action, it just has to be an aligned, inspired action that fits in with the goal that you're setting for yourself. The revolution, the change, you know, the change. And everything is about change right now. And another thing about change is be patient because it does take a little while sometimes, right? Hold that vision, hold that field of coherence where you feel in this relaxed state, right? And you're not looking at the past on how things have happened before, and you're not anticipating the future. What if, what if, what if? You're staying right here in this lovely golden moment of the present. And then we also have Uranus, 0 degrees Gemini, making a trine to Pluto. So it's saying you have this personal power. You have this power to change your reality and change the world, right? That's another interesting concept. Is there actually is there actually a objective reality, or is all reality subjective? Da, da, da. I'll let you think on that one. So Uranus, the disruptor, the revolution, planet of resolution, I can't talk, revolution, 0 degrees of Gemini, so like that mind energy. And it's saying boots on the ground in terms of getting out of your imagination. Like let your imagination start it all, but then take small aligned steps in the direction that you want to go. And then the trine is saying you are beautifully supported in your personal power. And in fact, I feel like it's saying like the whole world is rooting for you because everybody's ready for this stuff, guys. Everybody's ready for inclusion. That's all I'm going to say. Because hello, Aquarius, inclusion. That's what it is. Okay, then we have Neptune doing something. I didn't write the aspect, guys. Oh, yes, I did. Okay, so Neptune, again, retrograde, 29 degrees of Pisces, making a sextile, again, those boots on the ground to your personal power. So you're dreaming. Maybe you have really strong emotions around this. Oh, I just don't want to work for other people anymore. Okay, well, Neptune can get you all in your feels, especially when it's in Pisces. But then you have the sextile where it's like, you need to take the power back. How do you take the power back? With the sextile, with boots on the ground, small aligned steps would be you need to start enforcing boundaries, even if they're just energetic ones. And then we have come to the end, my friends. This is all I have for today. And, I hope this was helpful to anybody who chimed in. And I promise it will keep getting better and better. And I do feel like there's at least one nugget of truth for everybody who will watch this video. And have a wonderful day. See you later.